I had to take making money out of the equation. And so it was all about, you have to meet a real or a perceived need. That's what a successful project is. You might like somebody's record. A lot of people liked my records, but they didn't feel like they needed to go buy it. There was nothing about it that they felt I need this record. Somebody is going to go and purchase something they think they need. Either they do need or they think they need. I just wanted to just meet needs.
You are listening to the Christian Music Archive podcast, part of the New Release Today podcast network. I'm your host, Dave Maurer. Each week, I share stories about Christ, community, and music, chatting with musical guests who you will find listed on the pages of the Christian Music Archive. There are thousands of creative men and women who have helped shape the soundtrack of the Christian faith, and we get to hear their stories, learn about how Christ has made a difference in their life, and hopefully along the way, we'll learn how we can be a better part of our community. As I've been working on this podcast project, I've discovered a number of excellent podcasts that I really enjoy. One of those is hosted by Rick Altizer, a movie director who has produced movies for Chonda and Russ Taff. Rick was also a recording artist back in the late 90s, so it was great fun to sit down with Rick and chat about his transition from musician to movie producer, and I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. We'll get to our interview in just a minute, but I'm excited to first tell you about the Work of Mercy, Inc. in Colombia. They have a project there called Soy Satura, which is helping feed kids who are crossing the border from Venezuela to go to school. You see, the schools in Venezuela are not very good, so moms are taking their kids to school in Colombia where they can get a decent education. Now, the Colombia government is willing to provide an education to these kids, but they won't feed them like they do the Colombian children. And most of these kids from Venezuela are from really poor families that don't even have money to feed their kids. So Mercy Inc. is taking soybeans to create both food and juice that they are able to feed these kids, sometimes the only meal they will get in a day. I sure would like to share more about the Soy Satura project and how you can get involved. Would you head over to the website christianmusicarchive.com/mercy so you can learn how you can help feed these kids? Our intent is to make a difference around the world through this podcast, and one of the ways we do that is through the Work of Mercy, Inc. So again, head over to christianmusicarchive.com/mercy and discover how you can make a difference to the children of Venezuela. As I mentioned in the intro, Rick Altizer has been making biographical movies like I Still Believe, the Russ Taff story, and Chonda Pierce, Laughing in the Dark. Rick really stumbled into the movie career after his dream of making it big in music kind of sputtered out and went nowhere. I'm excited to share Rick's story of how he learned the importance of making things people really need, rather than just focusing on a career he thought he wanted. So join me in welcoming to the podcast, Rick Altizer.
Sounds great, Dave. Appreciate it.
You've been making music since the late 90s, and that's obviously why I'm talking with you, because you're on our website, the Christian Music Archive. But you've done a lot more than just release albums. You have been a music producer for other people. You've had a radio show. You were a church worship director. And you're currently a movie director. I think you even started an entertainment company. So you wear an awful lot of hats.
I do.
Let's talk about some of those hats.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite hat?
Well, whichever hat will pay the bills right now is my favorite hat. My heart, my dream was to do music. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And so I was a recording artist in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I sold dozens of records.
To all of your family.
I have dozens of fans all over the world. Dozens, I tell you.
Yeah.
I think my first record, Blue Plate Special, I think it went linoleum.
Oh.
And the second record did even better. It did even better. So,
well, my first exposure to you was Go Nova.
Okay, that's my third record. Yeah.
How did you get started in the music side of things? Was that something, and you said you always wanted to do that. Was that something you had to search after, or did you just decide I'm going to do it and make it happen?
Yeah, I moved out to Los Angeles to do music. That's why I went there, to be a rock star for Jesus.
Uh-huh.
Is why I went there, and I was managed by a guy by the name of Elliot Roberts,
Okay.
who managed at that time he managed Bob Dylan and Tom Petty and Neil Young, and he started Asylum Records with David Geffen, so he was kind of an icon.
Yeah.
If you see the movie Laurel Canyon,
Right.
he's in it. He was
Okay.
Joni Mitchell's manager and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young's manager. And so he was managing me, and I was, supposed to be a big, rock star, and things didn't work out. The deal that I was supposed to get with Sony didn't come through, and one thing led to another, and I ended up moving to Nashville and getting out of Dodge and being depressed for a few years. And God just had other plans, and it didn't work out, as things often do in the music industry.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I came out here and wrote songs to God and didn't play them for anybody. And then one day I felt okay to play them from somebody. And then I played a show and somebody said, "You need a record deal." And I went, "Yeah, okay." And so next thing you know, I'm in a record company's office, and the guy is offered me a record deal. I wasn't even looking for this
Wow.
deal. So I said, "Okay, I will take your deal on two conditions." He goes, "Okay." I says, "I'll never do Christian fluff, and you have nothing I need.
Hmm.
So if we're good on those two, then I'll do it." So I needed to say that for me, because the record deal had been such an idol in my life. It
Uh-huh.
had been, I'd been so ambitious and had worked so hard and wanted it so bad that when God stripped that from me, it was a really hard process of dying,
Yeah.
putting Isaac on the altar, and then God says, "Okay, now put the knife in."
Mm.
You go, "Wait a minute, God, you're supposed to stop me. Wait, no."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, "No, I want you to kill this dream." And so it was very, very hard and painful. And so I did not want to get back into uh, that idol of, I got to get a record deal. I got to be successful. I got to,
Hmm.
God really stripped me of that. And that's a long story that I don't know that we need to get into, but it didn't bring any fulfillment in my life. And so anytime I put anything in front of a God and look to it to give me meaning or purpose, that becomes a functional savior in my life. By definition, that's an idol.
Yeah.
So, uh, the first two commandments are, "Don't have any gods before me and don't make any idols."
Yeah.
Every other commandment kind of comes after those two, stems out of
Exactly.
those two.
Yeah.
If I'm lying, okay, I've broken a commandment, but why am I lying? Well, I don't, I want the praise of men. I don't want someone to think ill of me, or I don't want conflict or whatever. I'm avoiding all these other things
Yeah.
that have become idols in my life. Those are more important to me than obeying God. I want to avoid conflict so bad I'll lie. Right.
Mm.
So, the, to me, I don't know how we got off on that, but
Yeah, no. Well, to me, that's interesting because a lot of times we can see something big like a recording contract or a career or something as that idol. But you so aptly put it, we do other things that we throw into our lives to fill this God void or to avoid this God void, and that becomes something that's a stumbling block between us and the Lord.
right. Yeah. We're idol factories. Calvin says we're idol
Hmm.
factories.
Right.
We make idols. It's just what we do. I can make an idol out of my wife, out of my job, out of my kids, out of my comfort. Uh, I'm a big one with conflict. I like to avoid conflict. So that can become an idol in my life real easy. My comfort,
Yeah.
I want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So I was very uncomfortable after losing my management deal and going, recognizing this isn't going to work out for me here in LA. And so coming to Nashville, and then when this new label started up called KMG Records, they were a small label group,
Yeah.
just started up, and they wanted to sign me as their first artist. So I made two records for them, and then of course the company went out of business. Uh,
Right.
that's what they get for signing me.
Because after all,
And
you did go linoleum.
right, I worked with a guitar player by the name of Adrian Ballou. He played guitar on the record
Hmm.
and co-produced and helped mix, and so that was a great dream for me because he's my favorite guitar player. So I was
Ah.
just so thrilled to play with him. He's been with Bowie and Zappa and Talking Heads and Nine Inch Nails, and just a great creative. He's in a band called King Crimson.
Right.
So I'm so thankful to get to work with him, and so that was a great dream come true. And sold dozens of copies, and went to Holland, and was kind of a mid-level, B-level artist in Holland, and
Oh,
so that
really?
was kind of neat. And
Yeah.
had a couple of cool shows, and then the whole thing was over. And then I made the Go Nova record, which came out on a label that didn't really have any distribution. So and after that, it was just kind of over. So I still make stuff. I still made records just because I wanted to, and I made a scripture memory record that I did just for me, just to give away,
Yeah.
and still make things. And started a company with the guy that actually who's the president of the record label. His name is Kent Songer, and we started our own company, and then started a children's brand called Worship Jams,
Okay.
which a company called Razor and Tie out of New York put $2 million in TV ads. This was in 2006, 2007,
Okay.
right before the crash, 2008. And we were the number one selling worship record in America
No kidding.
on TV. No one knew who we were. None of the Christian people even knew who we were. But if you watch Nickelodeon, if you watch SpongeBob Friday nights on Nickelodeon, you'd see our commercials.
Ah,
We had commercials on Nickelodeon, kids raising their hands, worshiping God on Nickelodeon.
very
People were
cool.
calling up, Nickelodeon, complaining, why are you proselytizing on your network? So we did 800,000 units of Worship Jams. So, I mean, it was the number one selling worship record. We were outselling Chris Tomlin
Wow.
at that time, and no one knew who we were. And it was great, kind of under the radar, but that was, kind of a kid's worship thing. And I
Mhm.
said, well, if I'm going to do cheesy kids worship music, it's going to be the best cheesy kids worship music you've ever heard. So big, huge productions and all this stuff with, jiggy, jiggy, chicka, 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 everything,
Yeah.
that kind of, jiggy kind of thing. But the timing was just perfect. Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake had just gone nasty. The Jonas Brothers and Hannah Montana hadn't hit just yet. It was
Mhm.
right before them. So there was this little void where you couldn't get anything for your kids that was clean, and you could
Gotcha.
still sell records on TV. And so, I mean, we did 800,000 units at
Wow.
full retail. That's when we were selling at Target and Walmart. 80% of our record sales were Walmart and Target.
That's incredible.
We were full retail. We were $12.99 at Walmart. Full retail, we were able to do that. Then 2008, the whole thing crashed, and
Yeah.
the whole record industry started to tank, and then you couldn't sell records anymore. All the kids' records started at $2.99.
Mhm.
You couldn't get it. The stores started closing down. The CD section started getting smaller and smaller, and they started putting videotapes in. DVDs were then taking over the CD section, and then
Right.
the DVD section got bigger. So my business partner and I, we spoke, said, okay, we got to get out of music. It's dying. We're not able to make income with music anymore unless you go on the road and tour. That's it. That's
Right.
really the only way. And so I said, we need to get into film. And so we transitioned. We started doing consulting for PureFlix, and did work with Chonda Pierce.
So let's talk about that transition, though. How did you decide to switch from music to film? Because that was obviously a conscious choice. Was it because you saw the DVDs taking over the CDs in Target and Walmart?
Yeah, well, the writing was on the wall with downloads, with iTunes. It was very clear to see that you can't sell plastic anymore. People just aren't wanting plastic as
Right.
far as music goes. iTunes kind of killed that. The royalty rates off of iTunes and Pandora are ridiculously low. I mean, it's crazy. For a Christian artist who might sell, let's say maybe he sells 30,000 records,
Okay.
maybe 40,000 units. Okay, well, when you put that into, and let's say like somebody wanted the album, they listened to one or two of the songs on it.
Right.
So you put that, let's say he gets 60,000 downloads. Okay, it's 0.007 cents a download.
Which means it's
0.00,
0.00, not a lot.
which means, you can sell, you can get 1 million downloads, and what you get a couple $100. I don't know. I don't know the number. It's really, really small, the amount of money. So it's gone. I mean, basically your 30,000 records now, they just want the 2 songs. So you get a
Mhm.
total of 60,000 downloads and you've made about $400. So
You can't pay for music that way. Yeah.
no, no. So it's over. It's done. And so I've got friends that I've interviewed on my show, songwriters who have hits with Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers and number ones
Yeah.
and this all these country songs. And they were told all going in, your retirement's going to be your catalog. Well, now that's over.
Wow.
It's over. Streaming just doesn't pay anything.
Yeah.
So it's so bad. It's such a what they've done for writers in the music industry. It's kind of killed it. So the only way you can make money is to go on the road and tour, which now with COVID, oh my goodness, these
That's
guys
gone. Yeah.
really, they're struggling.
Yeah.
They're having to go work at FedEx or something. I mean,
Right.
they're doing whatever they have to do to try to make ends meet because that's why the ticket sales are now, it's $100 for a ticket
Yeah.
to go see a band. Used to be you would keep your concert tickets low so that you would go sell more records and you make your profit on your album sales. And that's what the tour was. It was all about selling albums. Now it's reversed. Now the streaming is to promote the ticket sales and the tickets are $100.
Yeah.
So that's the only way the artist makes money.
Well, I was reading somewhere, and this is kind of stepping back in your story, but I was reading somewhere that you said that you have not really ever had a formal music lesson, and that you played all of the instruments because you were cheap and you wanted to get it done, but you kind of are self-taught doing that. Is that 100? Did I read that correctly?
Well, I had when I was in college, I had some music classes. I had a music theory class in college, and I had a piano class, and I was playing drums at the time. I was a drummer in the jazz band. So yeah, I had a couple of years of college where there was some education there. But no, I don't read. I don't know how to read, or I'm not trained in that way at all.
So my follow-up question to that is, did you go to any sort of training on this shift that you made into video and movies?
No. You would think that would be intelligent. You would think that would be a good idea. I got thrown into it. I got thrown into the transition. So
let's talk about that transition, because according to somebody looking from the outside, the first time I saw you do anything video was with Chonda Pierce, and let's see, that became the number 2 movie of the release week. That seems like overnight success.
Right. Yeah. Number 2 movie in America. Yeah. The night it came out.
That seems like overnight success. And I know that most musicians are overnight success after 10 to 20 years of working on the road.
Yeah.
So how did you get that overnight success in the movies?
Well, we were doing some consulting for PureFlix. I was working with Chonda, doing music for Chonda.
Okay.
And we also were doing marketing for her. My business partner was more of the marketing side, and I was more of the creative side. So we were kind of a team where I would make stuff and he would sell it. That was kind of our deal. I would make music products and he would go sell them, and he would put the deals together. And so he was marketing Chonda. She was putting him on salary, and he got all of her DVDs, gold DVDs and platinum DVDs. And, he made all that happen for her with these special deals he would do with Family and Lifeway. That's when there used to be a Family Christian bookstores,
right,
and a Lifeway Christian. That's when they used to exist.
Yeah.
And you could do this kind of thing and get paid to do it. And so I was kind of helping him because we were partners. And so I started doing some music for Chonda, and I got close with Chonda. She's, really sweet and a good friend. And she said to me, Rick, I want to make movies. And I said, well, I can't really help you there, but I could make a demo tape. I said, remember back in the day when you'd make a little 3-song cassette tape?
Yep.
And you'd send it to the record label or the demo tape. And if they liked it, they'd bring you in and say, hey, we like this. Then they'd put you in a real studio, and they'd record those same 3 songs or something else, I said, why don't I go on the road with you for a weekend and get 5 minutes? And maybe, we get 5 minutes of something on the road that is interesting, that then somebody wants to, they want to do. Now, I had done some video stuff, just some things for her. Hey, Tulsa, I'm going to be in your town on Wednesday night, and little fun, little silly things like that. My son at that time was just getting out of high school, and he was starting to work with someone who was doing wedding videos, and he was being a videographer for wedding videos. So seeing what he's doing, and right in that moment, in that time, this is about 5, 6 years ago, the technology started to change to where you could get these DSLR point and shoot cameras
Right.
that started shooting, 1080p high def video with autofocus and great lenses, and it looks pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know too much, you know. And so I went on the road with her. Now I've obviously I am a recorder. I have my own recording studio. I do all my own engineering. So I understood audio. I knew how
Right.
to get good audio. And I didn't know at the time that the most important thing is audio, that if you get bad audio, you're done. You can have the best looking video you can imagine, but if your audio is bad, you're over. You're done. You've got to have good audio. So I took a little Canon T3i camera with a little $400 lens and put it on autofocus and followed her around and put it on a tripod and filmed her shows and followed her around and did some interviews for a weekend. And instead of getting 5 minutes, we got 16 minutes.
Ah.
And I put it together and edited it in this little program called Vegas. Sony had, it was at that time, Sony was putting this cheap little program called Vegas.
Okay.
It wasn't even like a pro, like Premiere or Final Cut.
Kind of like GarageBand for music.
Yeah, exactly. It was, this. And so I put it together on that, and her manager and her took me out to lunch, and they said, "We really think you need to make this movie. We really like this,
Wow.
and Chonda feels comfortable with you. We have a good relationship. She can talk to you." And so about 10 minutes of that 16 minutes ended up in the movie.
Wow.
The first movie was called Laughing in the Dark, and as it was going to be this movie about this comedian, Chonda Pierce, on the road with Chonda Pierce. Well, her daughter had become estranged from her, was not speaking to her, and she was not able to have any access to her grandchild.
Huh.
I mean, none. It's like they were dead.
Wow.
Her husband got so distraught. At 50 years old, he starts drinking and becomes an alcoholic.
Right.
And when we start the interview, when I started interviewing her, she was trying to do the tough love thing, and they were separated. So that's what was going on in her life. And Chonda, if you know Chonda Pierce very well, she's an open book.
Yeah.
So that's what starts coming out in all these interviews is just this pain she's in, and but it's very compelling. It really pulled you in. And so much of the powerful moments of that movie were in that first weekend I went out with her with a camera on autofocus.
Wow. Yeah.
And as we're making this movie, her husband dies. He literally drinks himself to death and dies.
Yeah.
Binge drinks one night and he dies. That's all going on while we're making this film. So, I'm putting this together and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just making it up as I go. Really, you would think I would, but I didn't have any time. I just get thrown into it.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was going to be this thing that was just we'll sell it on her table. When she goes, plays live, it'll be this little DVD that people can buy on her merch table. And then they say, we're going to spend $250,000 marketing. It's going to be in movie theaters all over America as a Fathom event. And my booking agent ran off with $100,000 worth of my money. And this has to be successful because I'm, so all this pressure was on me. Just this amazing amount of pressure for a guy who didn't know what he was doing. I mean, I had no idea what I was doing. I'm serious. I'm making it up.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm making up. I got transcripts of everything. I got everything transcribed. Then I took all the transcripts and highlighted everything that I thought that I made, took the highlights and put those in other binders and went through those and highlighted them again. And I end up coming in with an entire movie on paper. Then I took those little things and I put them on 4x6 index cards, and I had this little big index card box. And so I would just kind of move things around. So I'm creating my movie in my index card box.
Right.
Well, I found out that's called a paper edit. I didn't know what it was. I put my paper edit together. I come in to show the editor all that I've done. He goes, usually they have about 20 people do this. Did you know that?
Wow.
No. He goes, yeah, one person never does this.
There's your education right there.
Yeah. I came in with an hour and a half edited movie, and he said, "You've edited a movie. This isn't just a rough edit. You edited a movie I refuse to take a solo editing credit. I'm insisting that we put your name in as an editing credit. I'm like, wow, all right, whatever.
So let's pause right there for just a minute. So how did you know to do this stuff, or was this just, I've got to do this to keep things together? I mean, did you buy movie editing for dummies? I mean, did you study people who'd been doing this, or was this all just
No,
literally by the seat of your pants going,
this was all literally by the seat of my pants.
or should I say, by the grace of God?
Yes, by the grace of God.
Yeah.
I didn't have time. There was something in that little 16-minute edit that they saw that they're, I found out directing a movie is very much like producing a record.
Okay.
It's the same skill set. You look at Steve Taylor, who's a record producer and a movie director, and
Yeah.
he's, different. So it's the same kind of skill set. It's working with people. It's trying to tell a story. It's trying to get everybody to be focused and driving with a focused concept. And so it was the same kind of thing. The software is just like my recording software. It's click and drag, and it has the WAV files, but attached to the WAV file is a video file, but it's still cut, edit, paste the same way I do with a recording software. Very similar.
Okay.
So it wasn't that big of a jump to go into especially Vegas, because Vegas started out as a multi-track recording software.
Okay.
Then it became a video editing software. So it morphed, but it started out as a multi-track recording software. So all of the things on it, all of the buttons and the menus were all stuff I was familiar with, because it was the same kind of software. So
the one difference, though, the technology kind of transfers across, but the one difference in music and movies is, in music, you're telling a 3-minute story, and in a movie,
Right.
you're telling a 90-minute story. So was there a shift and a transition there that you had to do mentally?
No, it's still storytelling. Songwriting is storytelling, and it's still the same thing. It's still telling a story and how to tell it compelling, and to be able to know what feels right, and when you see it, and to know, like when Chonda says, I had a manager who told me that your kids would rather have a new car than to have a mom at home. And she goes, and he was dead wrong. And then she just sits there, and you can see she's as she's saying it, she's processing it for the first time, and she starts crying. So to know, just stay on her. Don't add any music, just stay,
Yeah.
to be able to feel that, and to see that, okay, to know how that works. I don't know. That was just something that was, I guess, was just intuitive. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Again, maybe a gifting from God.
Yeah. It just came. It was all the grace of God. I was having heart palpitations. I had 1 week, I had a 22-hour day, a 20-hour day, and an 18-hour day in the same week.
Ugh. Yeah.
So, I mean, and I'm not as young as I once were. And, so my son came into my office one day, and he goes, "Hey, don't have a heart attack, Dad." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "No, Dad, don't have a heart attack." I mean, he was like serious.
Wow.
It got my attention. He got my attention. So yeah, it just came. It was this freight train. All of a sudden, it's a Fathom event. We have a release date. It's on the books. We're marketing for that date. I have a drop dead date of when I have to deliver a finished movie with audio, mix, color correction, edit done by this date. So it's a train moving at 180 miles an hour.
Oofta.
And I'm just praying, God, I don't want to, help me not to screw this up. Please help me not screw this up. Because I was doing everything. I did everything because we didn't have any money. We didn't have any budget. All the money was being spent on the marketing, because you have to spend all this money on Facebook and all this stuff to get people, you got it in 800 theaters across America. Well, that's a lot of ground to cover to let people know, oh, by the way, on Tuesday night, on May the 15th, we're going to show this movie one time. We sure hope you come, so we were shocked. I mean, I didn't know anyway. No one had any idea that Chonda had this kind of draw. And it was like the #2 movie in America the night it came out. It was a huge success. It won awards. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So, and then from there, of course, there was so much story. We did another one. called Enough.
So was that using some footage that you had already gathered, or was this saying, okay,
Mm-mm.
we've got a brand new
All
project,
new.
we're going to do Enough, and then you did the same thing with Unashamed, right?
Yeah, same
Yeah.
thing. So we did
Yeah.
well, Unashamed, I said, Shonda, we can't talk about your life anymore.
Hmm.
And she didn't want to talk about her life anymore. So we did a topic.
Mhm.
So Unashamed was, being here in a culture that's hostile to the gospel, being unashamed of being a Christian
Right.
and standing for Christ in a culture that isn't going to like you.
Right.
That's what that was about. But yeah, so we did 3 Shonda movies and they all were very successful,
Yeah.
top 5, all of them.
And those opened the door then to work on Russ's story, right? Russ Taff?
Russ Taff, I still believe, and it was in theaters and it was in the top 10. And so, yeah, Russ had seen Shonda and had seen what I had done with her. And so he and his wife, I was interviewing him for my radio show.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying, your story is pretty interesting. If you ever want to tell it, because he actually on my show was the first time he ever publicly said he was an alcoholic. He had never talked about his alcoholism except on my radio show, my little dinky show that, 12 people listen to.
Yeah.
The same dozens of people that buy my records listen to my radio show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Russ on my show, it was the first time he ever publicly talked about his alcoholism. And I said, this is, if you ever want to do a Fathom event, like a movie or something, let me know. Cause I was in between, we knew we had the Shonda coming up, but we were I didn't have any work.
Yeah.
And so then they took me to lunch and they said, what would that look like if we did a movie together? And I said, well, I'll put you in the movie and I'll put your name at the top of the movie, but I won't make a movie about you. I will make a movie about the redemptive, powerful work of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But it won't be about you. That's the only movie I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just want to be straight up. If they were looking for a fluff piece, that
Right.
Russ Taff, what a great singer. Oh man, the best singer that ever lived. And that's the movie, great. I've seen plenty of those documentaries. I just have no interest in making that documentary.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. He's got an amazing story and that needs to be told. And when I said that, they lit up and they said, this is exactly what we wanted to hear. This is what we want.
Yeah.
Russ is all about Jesus. He's not about himself. He's not about promoting himself. And they got real open and really real.
Yeah.
And it won 9 awards and it was just like, oh my goodness. And so I was, again, just God shows up and does it. I don't know how it happens.
Yeah.
Seriously, I don't know how to make a movie. I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, that's the truth.
Mm-hmm. Well,
except
now you have 4
training.
You've got 4 under your belt, so you've got a little experience now that helps. Well, I will tell you this. I am a huge Russ Taff fan, and ever since the Imperials days. In fact, Russ Taff's vocals on I'm Forgiven is the reason that I'm into Christian music and the Christian Music Archive exists today. So when I saw that this movie was coming out, I said, I want to buy it. I happened to know about the story. One of the most inspirational, God loves you no matter what stories I've ever seen on film. And very, very well done. And I just want to thank you for being sensitive to God's leading to help make that story, because it's an amazing story. And I immediately bought the DVD and passed it around church and had people at church who were struggling with alcoholism and struggling with other addictions that said, this is a life-changing thing for me. So what you did to follow God's leading to make this movie is a gift and is a tool that is still being used, I believe, today. No pun intended, to change people's lives, to let people know that God loves you. In fact, I close every one of my podcasts with God loves you. In fact, he's crazy about you, which is something that Russ Taff said in that movie. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Oh, praise God. It's on Amazon Prime, so people can watch it there as well. But buying the DVD is great because my business partner and I, we did lose money on that. So buying the DVD will really help. So that would be great. About a dozen more people will buy it now.
So here's the thing that I find interesting. We see all of these great movies, this great music that's being produced, and we think, oh, this is great, wonderful, wonderful. But yet the people that are making this stuff are still having to finance it out of their own pocket in fact, losing money on it. Why do you continue?
Yeah, Steve Taylor said movie making is a nice hobby. It's a good hobby.
Yeah.
Well, with Chonda, we did make money. Because those were very successful Fathom events, and her DVD sales were well, and then because of the movies. Well, I think because of all the marketing dollars that we spent marketing her, her concert sales now her attendance is almost 6 times what it was
Wow.
before we made that first movie. And now she had huge concert in the past, but where her career was at that point, her sales are anywhere from the 5 to 6 times what they were. So
Okay.
I don't want to say the movie did that. But I do think all the money that was spent marketing those movies,
Yeah.
I would say there's probably about $750,000 worth of marketing money that have been put into marketing the movies. And what they're also marketing is her. They're marketing her career. So,
and she's kind of in the prime of her career right now too. I mean, where Russ, no offense against Russ at all, but he's not the vocal that he was 20 years ago.
sure, right,
Yeah.
and the alcohol and
Yeah.
stuff, and will take their toll. But so the Russ Taff movie was, as I was making it, there was a moment where I said, God, are you going to have me spend 2 years making this movie and then having me lose money?
Yeah.
Is that what's going to happen here? And I really felt the Lord say, I'll define success. Let me define what success is. And so, the movie came out and then didn't do what we were hoping it would do as far as box office went.
Right.
And God, he went ahead and defined success for me. And, we did, we lost some money, but then we had this Chonda movie come right up on the heels of it that did really well. So that we were okay. All the money we lost, the Chonda movie paid. And then I was interviewing Stephen Kendrick from the Kendrick Brothers, as you know, who make a bunch of Christian, Courageous, War Room, Fireproof.
So before we get into the Kendrick thing, because I do want to dig into that, because that's kind of the next big chapter that you're working on right now. But you have mentioned multiple times the fact that you don't want to do stuff that's just a fluff piece. You want to do stuff that's a meat that is something that points people to Jesus. People who hear your radio show, your testimony is very focused on, we do this for Jesus. Why are you doing this for Jesus when you could probably do this stuff on the mainstream and not risk your money as much? Why is Jesus content so important to you?
Well, at this stage in my life, so much of my early part of my life was about ambition and chasing that brass ring. The thought that I wasn't going to be Bruce Springsteen never really occurred to me
right
till I was in my late 30s, and it finally hit me. I'm not going to be Bruce Springsteen. I'm not going to be that. I mean, that's what I thought was going to happen, and the thought, and had never really. That's how wacko I was. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't be Bruce Springsteen.
Right.
And at this stage in my life, I don't want to do things that are me focused, just because it's so unfulfilling, and I want to make a difference. And what makes a difference are things that, at the end of the day, all glory goes to God anyway. If I'm trying to take glory for myself, I'm a thief. Because it's His glory. And so I just don't want to spend my time or my life glorifying anybody or anything else other than God. All I want to do for the rest of my life is just glorify God. That's it. I don't want to do anything else.
So how did you come to that change? Because I'm guessing that there's people listening who are up and coming musicians or who are in a career right now that says, man, I've got to provide for my family. I've got to do, certain things so that we can pay the bills, so that I can make the advancement, so that I can do more for God or whatever. How do you make that shift from this job can be a secondary piece to focusing on God?
Well, yeah, it never was that. I had a day job. I had a sales job. So I was while when I got my record deal, I was working a job. When I lost my management contract in LA and moved to Nashville, I was selling 3-ring binders, pocket folders, and index tabs on the phone. May I speak to the person responsible for purchasing your 3-ring binders, pocket folders, and index tabs, please?
Yeah.
And smiling and dialing. That's what I was doing.
Mhm.
And so, because I was feeding my family.
Right.
So I think for me, I had to take making money out of the equation. I just had to take it out. And so it was all about how can I minister? How can in a successful what I learned with my business partner, like with worship jams and things is you have to meet a real or a perceived need. That's what a successful project is. You might like somebody's record. A lot of people liked my records, but they didn't feel like they needed to go buy it.
Mhm.
There was nothing about it that they felt I need this record. Somebody is going to go and purchase something they think they need. Either they do need or they think they need.
Right.
And so, I just wanted to just meet needs. And so with Chonda, I just wanted to tell a real story. I didn't know when I was making it, I didn't know it was going to be a Fathom event. We didn't know if it was going to be successful. We didn't know what was going to happen. And God took it from there. But I think trying to figure out how to make music for a living, I think right now that's a waste of time. I think that's just a depression laden equation in your life. I think you're just asking for depression. I think you go make money, do what you need to do to make money, and then you make the music for God just to glorify him and let him do what he wants to do with it. And it might be just between you and God. It might be only God ever hears it.
Yeah.
And it's just to please him, and that's okay. But I think if you're trying to, all that ambition, it never worked for me. I never got it that way. It just never came to me that way. And so I've kind of just been single-mindedly focused on that because that's kind of been working for me. That's working okay for me. And okay, we're going to do worship songs for kids, but it's going to be the best worship music you ever heard for kids, and we met a need.
Yeah.
We met a need that people needed that. And so they went down to Walmart and they paid $12.99 for that CD because they needed it for their kids. And that's ministry. Ministry, it's like when we lead worship, it's not about what songs do you want to play, do you like, what kind of songs do you want your band to be?
Yeah.
We want to sound like U2 Light. That's all most Christian music. I just call it U2 Light.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It all sounds the same. It's just U2 Light. And you got the smoke and all that stuff and the skinny jeans and a bunch of 20-year-olds who don't really know anything about God, who are writing these songs, who really have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because they really have no experience with Christ.
Well, one of the things that I've been kind of working through in my life lately and hearing from a lot of folks on conversations like this is worship doesn't necessarily mean singing a song. Worship to our God is offering our bodies as a living sacrifice to God, and that he gives us gifts and skills to use. Now, some of us may have music skills, some of us may have accounting skills, some of us may have plumbing skills, but to do the best that we can at whatever that skill is the offer of worship to the Lord.
And I would define ministry. I would define it as meeting the need.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So what songs does your congregation need you to be singing?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't what do you like?
Yep.
That's not what it's about. That's not meeting anybody's need. What is this? I go to a Presbyterian church, a PCA church, and we do a lot of hymns because that's what we need to do in our church.
Yeah.
We do a lot of hymns, and I love hymns. Because they have real doctrine. And so, we don't do a lot of singing about how God makes us feel. We don't do a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that has worked for me. Has just been, I just do it for you, Lord. This is just to glorify you. I just want to tell the truth. I'm not here to make a fluff piece for anybody. And we want to just let you be. Yeah. I told Russ, Jesus is going to be the star of the movie.
Yeah.
You're in it. And it's going to be about you, but it's not about you. Jesus is the star. And so that's all I want to do. And I'm what a blessing that I get to do this.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I've never had a class, not a class, not a class. I haven't sit through one video of somebody telling me how to make. I don't know what I'm doing.
What did God tell Moses? What's that thing in your hand? Oh, it's my shepherd's crook. Well, then let's use that. That's what I've given you to
Let's
use.
use that.
Yeah.
Let's use that.
Yeah.
So the Russ thing was such a blessing to get to
Yeah.
do that. And you know, and there was Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith and Stephen Curtis Chapman and Michael Tate and Bart Millard and all those guys. So that was kind of fun getting to interview them and get to go to Amy Grant's house and hang out with her and Vince. That was fun.
Yeah. So I kind of interrupted your story to try to get back into that kind of why you do what you do, but you are now working on a project with the Kendrick brothers, and tell us a little bit about how that. You started by saying you were interviewing one of the Kendrick brothers.
Yeah, I was interviewing Stephen Kendrick, and after our interview, he was in the interview. He said some nice things about the Russ Taff movie. He really liked it. And after the interview, we started talking. He goes, you know, we've been wanting to do documentaries, and we think you'd be, we think you'd be perfect. Whatever. That's what he said. But anyway, I said, well, yeah, let me know. And so they had Overcomer coming out. And so they were getting ready for that release. But then a year ago, November, we finally came to let's do this. So we started filming a year ago, December.
Okay.
We started on it and started working on this. He'd had 3 or 4 ideas that he wanted to do documentaries on. And one was on the fatherhood of God. One was on abortion. One was on parenting. And then one was on how do I know if the scriptures are reliable?
Okay.
How do I know the Bible is real? And I said, I think the fatherhood of God is the upstream issue on all these. If I can't connect with God as Father, you can prove to me that the scriptures are true all day long. If I don't believe that God's a loving Father because my dad was so messed up and I can't put the words perfect and Father together, and so I've been really going through a lot of regarding sonship and this, what I call this functional orphan. I go to church, I lead worship, maybe I do a men's group, or maybe I teach a Bible study or have a home group that I lead. And I can believe that God can work in your life. I can pray for you and I can believe that God will do things for you. But I don't really believe it from me. I don't really think God's really going to be in control of my life. So I kind of need to do a little bit of that. And I'm not so sure that he's sovereign. So I need to be in control. And I know he's good for other people, but I don't just know how good he is for me. And so this is what I call a functional orphan.
Okay.
Someone who does not know that God is their Father, does not know how to relate to God as Father, because their father image is so messed up.
Yeah.
It's so broken. And I say, one of the things I say in the movie, we have like this big piece of glass, and on it is etched an image of our earthly father. And we look at God through that piece of glass and we project onto God traits that are from our Father. And our life work is kind of erasing that image of our earthly father so that we can see God through the lens of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so many people, Christian people, struggle with God. They struggle with belief. They struggle with believing that God loves them, that God is a loving Father to them. And so I think that's the upstream issue. I said, I think fatherhood is it.
Yeah.
This whole issue of sonship, being adopted as sons and daughters. This is the main issue in our country right now. Fatherlessness, fatherless homes is the number one demographic for a myriad of issues. Incarceration, the number one demographic for incarcerations are people who come from fatherless homes. Teenage suicide, fatherless homes. Prostitution, fatherless homes. drug addiction. I mean, you go down the list,
Yeah.
and fatherlessness is the number one issue in all. So, I mean, it is the issue of our and that's what's going on with our culture right now. Is we've got this fatherless culture, and look at us.
Yeah.
Look at what's happening. We're confused. We don't know who we are. We don't know what sex we are. We don't know anything. We just don't know who we are. We've completely lost touch with with God. And look at our churches. We're so disconnected from God. We go to church and we do all the church stuff, but we're disconnected from him. We're orphans. So we're making a movie on the fatherhood of God, and it's been a very different experience. This is going to be a Sony's going to put this out in theaters as a regular theatrical. So this has been very different in that, I've had budget. I have a slew of people who are helping and coming along to help. And we have a producer that the Kendricks have hired by the name of Mark Miller, who's doing a great job, and, editors and all these different people that we're working with and collaborating with. So what a different, and having the Kendrick brothers to collaborate with as well.
Yeah.
So I'm writing and directing it, and they're the executive producers.
Okay.
Basically, that means they're kind of putting up the money and overseeing everything,
So the thing that comes to my mind is the documentaries that you've made so far of Russ Taff. You have Russ as a central figure, although Jesus is the focus. Chonda's story. You've got, a very dynamic person as the central focus. Last time I saw, it was kind of hard to stick a mic and put a camera in front of Jesus. So how do you paint this picture of God the Father without a physical star, so to speak?
We have four stories that we tell in the movie. 4 stories: an adoption story, someone who found his father, who didn't have one, a surrogate father, someone who grew up with bad dads, and then we do a thing on the blessing, on getting a blessing from the father. Tony Evans is in the movie. Of course, the Kendrick brothers are in it. Jim Daly from Focus on the Family. We have some football players, some NFL things going on. So some interesting stuff that I'm excited about. It's pretty awesome. I'm really excited about this.
So
project.
where are you in the middle in this project?
We're finishing up the editing now. We're editing it now.
Okay.
We've been in the editing stage for a while. And it's supposed to be, with COVID, we just don't know, but
Sure.
Sony is wanting to have it in theaters in August this year, August of 2021. And so that is the hope, that it'll be in about 1,000 theaters. They wanted to do more, but the Kendricks said, no, we don't want, because you have to pay. I don't know if you know this, you have to pay $1,000 a theater.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
Well, it used to be called a reel charge. Like, you would have these big, thick, heavy reels of 35 millimeter film.
Right, sure.
And so they would charge you $1,000 for that. And so now they're calling it a screen charge.
So you basically rent your screen where you're going to play your movie.
Well, it's just a way for the theaters to make some extra money. They're saying, okay, we've switched everything over to digital, so we need this extra money to help us with our, and so I think in another 3 or 4 years it might be eliminated. But I want you to do the math on this now. $1,000 a screen, and they want to put it in 1,000 screens.
That's a few zeros.
That's $1 million. Now, that's just to get it into movie theaters. That doesn't mean we've marketed it, or we've made it, or edited or color corrected it, or taken out one ad or one Facebook post.
Yeah.
That's $1 million just to get it on screens. So that's why they didn't want to have it on 2,000 screens.
Yeah.
They said, let's do it on 1,000. And if it does good, then we can go to the other screens. But if it tanks, we don't want to have that, because guess who has to pay? It's just like a record deal.
Sure.
Same thing.
Yeah.
The artist pays for it. All comes out of the record company's not going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it. So, Sony's not paying for that. The Kendrick brothers are going to pay for that, so it comes out of all their royalties. So, So anyway, more info than you wanted to hear.
No, that's very cool. I'm a credit reader and a behind the scenes fast aficionado. I love hearing all this kind of stuff behind the scenes. Well, Rick, I'm very excited about seeing this movie and excited that we've got Sony on board. I mean, that's a pretty big name in movies. We're going to be praying that this movie is just another one of those stories, like the Russ Taff story, like the Chonda stories, that point people to Jesus, that say there is a God, a Father who loves you, and you need to open your heart to him because he's going to change your life in ways that you could not imagine.
My focus on making the movie is really for Christians who they think they're going to see some movie about the fatherhood of God, like, oh, this will be good for a non-Christian to show them that there's this God who loves them, and for them to realize, oh my goodness, I don't believe this about God. I'm the orphan. This is me. And that's what I want to do is I want to, and what you can do with a movie, which is so amazing, is that you can communicate to the left and the right part of the brain at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I can communicate to you emotionally and give you things that just really hit you hard emotionally. And then I could communicate truth, and you're ready to hear it. You're open to hear something that I could say. I could come up to you and go, you're really struggling with God. You're struggling with believing in God. And you go, no, that's not at all. I don't struggle at all believing in God. When the reality is, you really do. Mm-hmm. But you're too self-righteous to even admit it. And so when I can show you from an emotional perspective, I can open up, that's the beauty of film, is that it can really communicate emotionally. Then you're able to get a great truth in and go, oh my goodness. I had a few clips that we had put together, and I have a home group that I lead, and I played it for my home group. And this guy who's been really struggling came up to me when everybody had gone. He goes, Rick, I need to see this movie. I went, yeah, well, I'd like to see it too. He goes, no, you don't understand. I need to see this movie. Mm-hmm. He goes, he said, just from what I saw, I have to change my life. I was just going, oh man, that was, to me, that's the success.
Yeah.
It's not an award or a number 2 movie in America. That is not the success. To me, it's having someone say, after seeing this, I have to change my life. I have to start seeing God differently, and I need to start relating to him as Father. And I'm seeing that my relationship with my dad is so bad, I don't know how to relate to God as Father, and I need to learn how to do that. So that's what we're trying to do with the movie, and it's a big task. And so, boy, if you could be praying for us, because we're still in the final stages of kind of putting all this together, and there are a few puzzle pieces that we're still trying to figure out. We pray all the time. God, you're the author, you're the writer, you're the director, you're the producer. Will you make this movie? This is your movie. Will you make it? So, boy, if anyone listening could put us in your prayers and pray for us as we make this movie, I think it's going to have a powerful impact. I mean, I think it could. It's just what God wants to do with it. It's up to him. It's his thing.
I hope you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes look at movie making, music, and ministry. I appreciated Rick's focus on learning how he learned the importance of meeting his audience's needs, even putting aside what makes sense financially, to focus on the things that really make a difference. I also appreciated his emphasis on making sure that you can meet people's needs with excellence and quality. I think this is a great reminder for us no matter what career path we are on. I like what Paul writes at the end of the book of Titus that kind of ties into this. He's giving instructions on the importance of caring for each other, and he says, quote, "We must learn to do good by meeting the needs of others. Then they will be productive." Using our skills to care for and meet the needs of those around us is one of the things Jesus also demonstrated during his lifetime here on earth. These are great reminders, Rick, and I thank you for sharing them with us today. As always, thanks for joining me for this conversation today. I am grateful that we get to spend this time together each week hearing stories of God's amazing faithfulness. As a regular listener to this podcast, would you mind taking a few minutes and rating it on your favorite podcast app? Reviews and ratings really help spread the word so that other folks can hear about these great conversations. And if you have comments or questions for me, please feel free to drop me a message on any of the social media platforms. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon by searching for @CCMExchange. Or you can always drop me an email on the website christianmusicarchive.com. I'm really looking forward to our time together next week when I have another great conversation with one of the musicians you'll find on the pages of the Christian Music Archive. So until then, remember this: God loves you. In fact, He's crazy about you.